Yeah, so I've been trying to get my head around this thing all morning, and various things have um, impacted on this. I think the first thing was that I'd come across this guy that's doing this drawing workshop stuff, and it's all focusing on very illustrative based stuff. So you're all focused on let's draw the shadows, let's draw the shapes of the, all that kind of thing. Quite, as I said, illustrative. And I'm if what you do takes, a method or knowledge or whatever to do it, then do it. That's there's more than one way to skin a cat. I don't think that it matters. To be honest with you, I don't think it matters. As long as you're doing it, that's all that matters. So whether you want to mess about with Loomis or Riley or whatever, whatever, as long as you're happy, and that's the main thing. But the thing that, because I don't do any of those things, and people are saying, and like yesterday was, when I did the thing about how I do it, that one. There is first of all, there is no desired outcome from this. If you don't, if you don't have a requirement to achieve something, other than obviously it's a portrait, but aside from that, if you don't have you're not locked into an outcome of some kind, then you're not looking for ways to achieve the outcome, because you're not trying to guarantee. In fact, I would say the last thing I want to do is guarantee it's going to work, which is a bit crazy, I suppose, but it's just how it is for me. And so, what is it that's happening? It's magic. It must be something that is unexplainable. I suppose this is probably the way I feel about it. I think it has to be unexplainable for it to have the meaning for me. I think if it's explainable, then it's back to illustration. It's because of this, that, and the other. And because it's not explainable, I can tell you how to get things in the right place. Dead simple with 3 dots and and finding the shapes and that. It's easy stuff. But this other bit, the bit that makes it work regardless, the bit that makes that eye look like that eye regardless. There's no attempt to draw it. But why does that look like an eye? In fact, I've just had this conversation with a guy outside who was putting a new drain pipe down next door. He said, I was showing him stuff, and he said that he referred to other people's paintings, and he was saying that when you get close up, it's all nothing. It doesn't. You can't see it, but yet when you walk further away, you can see what it is. That kind of thing. I know that's a deliberate thing that people will create. It's the suggestion application, which is what I do all the time. But nevertheless, it's still about not drawing. It's still about the thing that is not deliberate. It's the thing that's part of the expression, the response thing. That's what it's about. I mean, people talk about it being an expressive thing, don't they? Say the work is expressive. And sometimes I think that's just a dismissing thing, just an expressive artist, it's expressionism. And it demeans that it's not technically accurate, and doesn't follow the anatomical rules and all that sort of nonsense. But I don't know. It's something that I don't want to know what it is. as soon as you know what it is, then you'll just keep doing what it is. You know what I mean? It's like there's people that have a definite style. There's many professional artists that have a way of drawing, a way of painting that is obviously them. They call it the style, but it's their answer to everything. It's the same answer to everything, and that for me is wrong. I don't want the same answer for it. I want the different, because for me, every portrait is different. Every face that I look at is different. I can't even. I tell you what. I looked at this reference, and I'd seen somebody today who's connected with me who'd done something quite, I wouldn't say similar, but it's got the potential to be similar. And I immediately thought, oh, crikey, I don't want an image, this image. I don't want this image to be like what they did. You know what I mean? So I've got to be really careful that I'm not mimicking what they did with this similar kind of image. And the only way I can get around that is to rely on this instinct thing, the creative consciousness stuff, and just allow that to take charge of what's happening, rather than do something deliberate in order to make sure it's not the same as this person's who's I'd seen this morning. Just let the thing happen. Let my creative consciousness take over, and then usually what happens with that is that it works. So I'm, and that again is back to this magic thing. What exactly is it that's happening? Tell me again. Write it down. What's happening? Einstein. Tell me what you can't tell me what you're doing. Simply, then you don't know what you're doing. I'm sorry, mate. I know exactly what I'm doing, but I can't tell you how I'm doing it. So that's that out the window. But it's that, and I like the idea of it being indefinable. I think creativity, full stop, is indefinable. But as I said, it happens to me. I think it happens to a lot of people, but it happens to me this way. And if for some reason people find using methods that have an effect, that have the result in a acceptable copy of a face, then so be it. That's what they want to do. For me, I think that unless you are prepared, this is back to Ken Robinson and the wrong thing, I suppose, but unless you're prepared to embrace the magic, then I don't know, you will probably not experience what your true creative potential. I think that's probably one of the things that I'm connected with most, and what upsets me most. And I think I told you I did a video of last week about why I do this and my motives for it, and I got really upset about it. I did tell you on one of the videos. I got really upset because I'd seen this couple on YouTube, and a young girl and a fella playing the piano, and it was beautiful. It really was. It was an incredible moment, and I just saw this sheer talent of both of them. The purity of it, and I thought, cracky, I just hope that I can manifest my creativity in that way. So I got upset about that. Then I got upset about other people not finding the same fulfillment. And so it was a bit of a tearful event, really. So I won't put it out because I was a bit embarrassed by it after I did it. I sent it to somebody and I was a bit embarrassed about doing it. So no, you won't see it. Don't worry about that. But this is the thing. This is that the magic thing, the thing that can't be defined thing, the thing that is inside all of us. This guy who's been talking to, can't draw a toffee, he said, never been able to draw. And I said, I bet you can. And I bet you can. And I bet I could show him how to do it. And that's the thing. That's the thing that is driven out of all of us. If you're experienced with this and you've had a lifetime like most people have been told that it's a waste of time, then you know what I'm saying. that it's the creativity is driven out of us deliberately. I mean, it's not, you know, the fault of your parents or even the adults that are, you know, the teachers and stuff like that, but they don't know. But deep down, there is a societal pressure, a societal um, I wouldn't say disgust, but it's a societal dislike for creatives. And, you know, and this is why we all sort of stick together, you know, we all sort of create these little groups, gangs, and cliques, you know, because we're the only people that get it, and then we can't really help each other because none of us are making any money. So it's not really like we can help people to survive, so to speak, as an artist. But nevertheless, it's not a bad thing to be around other artists. I think that's the one thing that I miss the most, apart from my sons who are artists. That's the only exposure I've got to you know, other creative people. But it's a bit it's just them, so it's a bit narrow. And I mean, they suffer the same thing. They've only got them each other and me, and kind of, I'm not really in their sphere when it comes to I just make portraits. They're much more sophisticated than me. But nevertheless, it's one thing I think is really important for artists, is to be around other creative people. The trouble is that the kind of events where you do get creative people congregating invariably are the wrong kind of events. You know, they're awards or they're not strictly creative events. They're probably more social events. In fact, there was one the other week in Rotherham I didn't get to go because it was absolutely chucking it out of rain, and I ain't going out of the house when it's raining. You know what I mean? No one goes out of the house when it's raining, do they? But yeah, that was a social event for creative people. So, and it's those kind of things. I'm not sure that I want to be around people that are being social about, you know, because they're artists. I think I want to be around people. When I'm talking about socializing, I want to be around people that aren't artists, because I don't know. I probably, as a portrait artist, I probably feed off people that aren't creative more than I'd feed off people that are. If that makes sense. I think the knowing people, empathizing with people, connecting with people, that's the thing that I need to. That's the thing I need to feed. That's the thing that makes you good at making portraits, being able to empathize and connect. So I'm not saying you couldn't do that with artists. They could be equally as inspiring as a person, as a subject. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things, and I'm more and more I'm inclined towards the it's the unexplainable. I'm more and more inclined towards that for this, as you know, as an explanation of this. I can't explain it. I'm more inclined to that because I just seem to be able to do it better when I'm not trying to think about it or explain it. In fact, you probably notice that I never do talk about what I'm doing on here, apart from there'll be little things, and I'll say, you know, it needs this, that, and the other, tonal balance or whatever it might be. But generally speaking, I don't talk about what I'm doing. And when I did that thing yesterday about the how I do it, that was about as close as I get on these. I do it in the lessons. I will talk about, you know, in the members area. I will talk about what it is that I'm doing there, because they're members and I want to help them to be, you know, to draw better, but or to do this, but to make better portraits. So yeah, I will try and explain them, but there's not an awful lot to explain. I'll talk about what I'm considering at the point at which I'm doing it, and this is why I'm doing it, kind of thing. But invariably, those kind of sessions end up where I don't get the outcome that I should, and that is probably illustrating what I'm saying about this is not something you need to think about. I think it's the difficulty is with people understanding this is it's completely different to what, you know, every other video you can say, oh, you need to be doing the structure or the, you know, the boxes, the circles, the squares, the spheres, and all that kind of thing. And this is how the light actually falls on a surface, you know, a sphere or whatever. So you get a lot of that, and I'm none of that. It's the perspective thing, you know. It's that. Why can't you see that trees get smaller when they move away from you? Why can't you see that? Why do you need to know its perspective? It's all that kind of stuff. It doesn't make sense to me to have to call it something, explain why it's like that, and which is really what I'm talking about with the rest of it. It doesn't make sense that I have to try and explain what it is that I'm doing, because you can see what I'm doing, and you can see, and I can see what I'm looking at, and consequently what I'm looking at is determining the way I respond to it, you know, and the way I feel about it is helping me to do the same. So, you know, it's all part of the same reaction, you know. It's almost like a involuntary action. But for me, because this is fundamentally observation driven, both visual and emotionally driven observation, that's the number one thing. And why wouldn't you, you know, develop that as a primary skill instead of adapting some geometry or some mathematics and then trying to apply observation and emotional and visual observation to that? It's kind of, you know, you're building the car and trying to make the engine fit. It's that, you know. So but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to do that. It makes sense just to respond to what you see and let you know, as I say, the magic happen. Even though that doesn't make sense, does it? It sounds like a quack theory, you know, like a conspiracy theory, you know. But I don't know. I'm still. The more I've done this, the less I want. And I started out, as you know, I started out with not wanting to do anything geometry wise or any kind of anatomy knowledge stuff. I did start out like that, and as I've done it more and more, I'm even more convinced that I don't need to know those sort of things. So, and I've never got to a point where I've thought, oh, I just can't draw noses, and therefore I need to understand the structure of a nose. You know, I've never got to that point. So it's not, you know, it's not like I've grown out of it. It's just become even more of a confirmation that this is this is the way that I do it, and now that I'm getting into this point of thinking of it as a sort of mysterious force, magic. You know, I mean, why wouldn't I? I mean, it seems, if people want to call it a gift, well, that's a magical thing, isn't it? A gift from who? A gift from omnipresent guy that's decided you should be gifted with this. Is that how? Well, that's as ridiculous as thinking that it's magic. It's no different. But as I said, it's more now, and you know what I think it is though. I think that because the doing now has become so refined. You know, my doing has become so refined in terms of, you know, finding where the locations of the things are, looking for when the distances, comparison, making comparisons, all that kind of. It's become habitual almost, that I can really give in to the, you know, the inner magician, and really let that drive the way it manifests. You know, that's the thing, and it's probably why it's become more, as I said, become more apparent now that this is the way I feel about it. It doesn't help when I'm trying to talk to people about drawing this, because it doesn't make sense, does it? You know, I mean, I talk to the guy now, the guy doing the pipe. And I tell him, I said it's magic, and that doesn't register with me at all. He thinks I'm some, you know, so I should be working at Barnum's or something, you know. That's about as close as to his understanding magic circle stuff, you know. Or Paul Daniels, if you're in the UK, I remember him. A little bit magic. It's magic, he used to say. Bless him. Legend. But anyway, so as I said, it doesn't really help people. But this is kind of the follow-on from, what was that? That was that one last night that I was doing. I was talking about how I do it. I think it might have been that one. So this is kind of the follow-on from that. This is everything about that was my method, my finding the locations, finding the shapes, using tone, and then using tone to define the form. Dead easy stuff, right? This is the feeling thing. So this may well be, you know, with the mouth and the eyes and the, you know, there's all the stuff that's doesn't follow that level of finish and that level of intricacy in terms of the drawing of it. And sorry, I was just trying to get that nice flow going on there. So going past the, as I said, the as you see me do it now, which find the locations, the points, the anchors, attaching the shapes to the anchors with tone, and then building the tones. You've seen me do that. But going past that, because that now is just ingrained within me. It just happens, that stuff now. So now the magic, the bit that really makes it special, can just come out and play. And that's kind of where you want to be with it. That's where I want to be with it. So that it's no longer a chore. And I can understand people saying, oh, well, that's why you'd use Loomis, or you'd learn about anatomy, so that you could literally let the creativity come out and play. The problem is with that is that those kind of regimes require a level of implementation that is predominantly about the level of implementation. It's not about the other stuff. It is definitely about doing it this way, you know, doing it in the Loomis or the anatomy based way. It's definitely about that. You cannot afford to drift away from that, or you won't drift away from that, because it's, as I said, it's a bit like me with being ingrained with the freedom kind of approach that I've got. It's the same thing. If you were embedded within the Loomis and the other methods and for anatomy, then you won't move away from that. It'll be an integral part, probably the most important part of doing this. So the freedom to make mistakes, for instance, isn't there. It's locked away. The reason why you learn to do it with a method is to avoid mistakes. And really, the last thing you want to do is avoid mistakes. You know, this thing that I said about Ken Robinson, about you've got to be prepared to make mistakes, to do it wrong in order to release your creativity. And that And that really, that then questions whether or not adapting or adopting a method would allow you to be creative. And I'm not talking about creative in terms of let's make it, blue lines across it and all that sort of thing, which you see all that. You see people trying to deface the drawing when they've finished it in order to bring some creativity into it. But I'm not talking about that sort of thing. The creativity is right at the beginning. It's right at the start of the mark making process or the brush making process, the painting process. It's there. That's when the creativity is at its peak, and it's always at the point at which the life enters the work. Whether it's particularly if it's a portrait, it's always there at that point that the life enters it. So anything that stifles that, anything that stifles, whether it's an expectation or whether it's a way of working, because that's kind of an expectation as well. It's not good for doing this. It's not good for making those special things. Expressing your own creativity is not good for that. So yeah, as I say, I'm not far off done with this. I'm going to go to town on the background, and I'm going to make it a bit more, give it a bit more personality. I think it's the light's good on it at the moment, but I just want to tighten things up. The ear's not quite right. It's a bit messy and it's a bit distracting. She's got an earring there, which I think is quite important to it. But the background needs to be considered. I think this is definitely one I was explaining this morning about the backgrounds that I've been putting on there, some of the drawings, and why I put them on, because it basically emphasizes the mood. And I think this is one of those that needs to have a background on it, just to create the drama. I think it's got everything going for it. The mouse, fabulous. I'm not really drawn that, but that's what I was saying about this the expression stuff. But the thing, I think the number one thing for me is you got to let yourself do it. You can't get in too bogged down by the way of doing it. A way of doing it. You just got to let yourself do it. I know people that will say, "Oh, I can't draw this or I can't draw that, and therefore I need to understand this." But you will understand those things. It's more important that you connect with the subject and respond to the subject. If it needs to be detailed, if it needs to be precise, it will be. It might not be straight away, but it will be eventually, because that's how you respond to things. So it's not like it's not going to happen. It's just that you can't be prepared. You can't be prepared for your response. You have to respond. And your response is whatever it is. That's the thing. Preparation for this kind of stuff isn't hours and hours of sketchbook torment, of noses and God knows what else. It's not that. And I used to think that was a problem. I mean, at art college when I did graphics, they insisted we kept design sketchbooks, but I couldn't see the point. So instead of having a sketchbook, I used to have a notebook, and then they just, because they used to mark you on your sketchbook, and which is crazy because it's a design course, it's not. So it's more important, the philosophy of design and the understanding of the market and all the rest of it, and communication and everything else. That was more important to me. But that's about as close as I got to using the sketchbook. I wouldn't use one now. I don't see any point in having a sketchbook. I just want to draw. It just gets in the way. If I've got to faff around with a sketchbook, I want to get on and draw stuff. And that's it. As I say, you kind of, because of that, and I do it for the right reasons. I love doing it, and you can't stop me doing it. I'll do it all day long. I'm just, I suppose, driven to do it because I like doing it. But if it became a chore, if I had to learn to do something, if I had to sketch in a sketchbook for no apparent reason, I don't see the reason for drawing noses in a sketchbook. I can understand that people want, but that's just the noses that, oh, I learned to draw noses from any angle. Just learn to draw shapes and tone. That's all you need to do. And you can do that by just drawing, because everything's shapes and tone. There's not a, any different between a nose and a mouth and the ears and the head. It's all shapes and tone. So that's the my thinking behind the whether or not I need to work in a sketchbook, and I don't. I really think that it's for me, it's a waste of time. So, like I say, I'm probably going to do this. I'll tell you what I like about it is that there is some kind of, because of the contrast on it, there is some kind down that edge there. What I'm feeling is, it's not like an outline around things, but because sometimes you see people draw an outline around things like that. There's not really an outline there, but it just seemed to have such a posterized edge. It's like a definite edge to it. But as I say, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna probably do that all the way down. I quite like the shadow on this side of the face as well. So the definite hard edge down the face. But you can see how it's happening now. I'm going to take this back because it's not going to be that dark. But yeah, you can see how it's doing it now. This needs to be darker in there. Because it just feels like a there's this sort of posterized edge to it that it's not quite an outline, a sort of a definitive edge. It's more and this one up here as well, it just gets a little bit fatter there, but then a little bit fatter there before it goes up to there into the hair, and then the hair is like a definite dark. You can see it, a definite dark there, and then obviously there's the yeah. I think I just need to adjust which I can do when I do this. I just need to adjust the trajectory of the head a little bit, so it's a little bit more, which is not a bad thing, because I like the idea of this becoming a bit more connected to the background. You see how it's changing now there. Yeah, I was talking about the charcoal on this paper. This is still the same charcoal that I always use, which is the homemade hazelwood stuff. And on this paper, it's got like a dusty feel about it. You can see how it's got that grainy, dusty feel. And it brings a different, it's like, you can see a bit on here. It brings this kind of, I don't know. It's more than just a drawing feeling about it. It's just at the top. I think it's because excuse my head. I think it's because the dustiness of it creates a commonality of tone, I suppose. On the surface. And if I blend or smudge anything, there is that subtle kind of unity of the tones, which is the thing that I was talking about last night with the when people do the drawings and then rub them out and then draw over it, that kind of thing. So it creates a continuous tonal background almost. I think the downside to it though is I can't draw with it. I can't. There's no precision at all with this. So it's a good and a bad thing. I'm not really that fussed whether it's 100% precise and the drawing's exact. I'm not really bothered, but I'm more interested in the suggestion replication stuff. So it's not a problem that it's not as precise, or it can't be as precise as as it should be. But I have to give in to that though. I have to allow that to happen. Otherwise, it has to be everywhere. That's the other thing, right? If I do try and make one thing more detailed or specific than somewhere else, everything's got to come up to that. And that's the thing about tones and stuff. If unless you can balance it, because that's another thing as well. People can have can use just detail in certain places or blend in certain places. You know, I can just blend in certain places like that, but I'm very careful of it because it can set the tone. It's a bit like, you know, if you're using this and then you use a brush on it, you know, the way it suddenly becomes all blendy. It's almost like you feel that everything else has to be blendy after that. This is why I'm very careful with the sponge on a stick. If ever I use this, it's just to take tones back. I wouldn't use it to blend anything. So, but that, as I said, that's just something that is part and parcel of using this particular charcoal and this particular, you know, paper combination. Yeah, I think it's getting there. I think it feels right, which is the first assessment as whether it's getting there or not. It definitely feels right. The the feeling is mostly to do with the contrasty lighting. I think that's probably the thing that endorses or embodies the feeling aspect of it. The pose, obviously, and the components, you know, hair in a certain way and all that. This all contributes to the feeling, obviously, but I just got to be careful with, say, with the ear, for instance. If it dominates, if it becomes too much of an ear, you know, because of the tone's not being right on it, then it's going to detract from the whole essence thing. Sometimes I'm not drawing it deliberately for that reason, because sometimes it can be a, particularly when it's like this on the side of a face, it can be a distraction. I think she's got some kind of bow thing on her, or a bun thing on the back of her head there. So I'm going to end up drawing that, I think. It's because it's just you can see the height of her head, so it's got something there like that. And then obviously I'm going to try and it's kind of round but not round, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. I might end up trying to make it a little bit lighter. Yeah, I think if I'm looking at the trajectory of things, I'm looking at the ear that's coming down. You know, the way that, which I think is not bad. I think it's because of the tonal aspect here that there's not enough of a difference and not enough of a strength there. Yeah, so I think it's you know, apart from making the thing a little bit more connected tonally, I think it's just about there. I can't really explain what it is that's going to happen, but this is kind of the magic thing, and I'll only look at it and just let things take its course. I think that's probably the same with any drawing that I do. And then, you know, I think the other part of it as well is this desire to capture the the essence of something, it's always, once you've caught it, you should stop. So anything that goes past that is either going to detract from that essence, or it's just going to be unnecessary. It won't damage the essence of it, but it's pointless because it doesn't add to it. So, like I say, I'm just gonna go with it, whatever it tells me to do. Without spending too long on it, obviously, because that's the enemy, the doing side of things, which distracts you from the main reason for doing it, I suppose. Because as soon as it becomes about production, then you're gonna lose it. You probably create a wonderful drawing, but the essence of it is overridden by your desire to be technically, to achieve a technicality thing. Yeah. The thing is that on about this, the background thing, you can see how that has suddenly made all the highlight, the drama of the face more intense because of that. Just by adding that to the background, it sort of obviously makes the neck pop out more. But you can see how that has emphasized the things like that. I mean, that's not really it's not that well drawn. It's just me scribbling. And I mean, half the time when you see me putting charcoal on, it's still going to rub me off. I'm putting it on so I can either in a loose hatching kind of way, but half the time it's so that I can rub it off to make it some kind of tone. And then other times I'll just leave it on. It depends. It depends on the way I feel about it. Really, it's not. As I said, it's not a conscious thing. This thing about doing certain things because of that, because I'm trying to find this or that and the other. Just like none of that. It's not. I don't do any of that. I don't do anything that would be considered to be deliberate. That's the thing. None of this is deliberate. It's deliberately undeliberate. That's what it is. And that, all this stuff, all this things, these things that stuff I've been talking about, where learning a method or whatever else, all those things it's kind of contrary to the deliberate way of approaching this, where it's all about emotional response and all the rest of it. It's like you can't be emotionally responsive while you're trying to use geometry to define the shape of the head. You know what I mean? You can't be, can you? It can't be a responsive, expressive kind of process when it's engineered. It's engineered to be a certain way. See, but going back to the magic thing, I think that if people can give in to this inner magician, they'll find that they'll be able to do far more than if it was confined within a way of doing it, you know, confined within a process. But there's so many things you got to get your head around. You got to get your head around this, you know, zero expectations thing. That's a big thing. You know, people have problems with that one. They're always going to expect an outcome. Drawing is drawing. You know, drawing is a way of doing things that is ingrained within them. So getting away from, and portraits in particular, you know, getting away from the idea that it has to be a certain way for it to be a success. It's really hard. It's hard for a lot of people now. So, as I said, it's I think the whole thing is a mindset thing. I think that's what I've come to the conclusion. And if you can open your mind to this, there's no telling what you're capable of doing. That's the thing. I think that's the thing about what I said earlier about getting upset about people not finding their creative soul. You don't know how good you can be. It's as simple as that. You don't know how significant what you create will be. You don't know how it will impact on the world generally, and as well as, you know, you and your life. You just don't know. Not whilst it's locked within a perception of how things should be done. Anyway, I'm done with this for now, and there'll be a bit of tweaking, no doubt, certainly with the ear, because the ear is just annoying the hell out of me. But yeah, I think I'm done for now. I'm gonna have my tea now, and then I might be back on. If I'm back on, I might have finished it, in which case I'll show you.